When I was a kid, and I'm going to open up my message with this story, because we're talking, everyone say run. But how many knows you can run the wrong way? And so I somehow was given a jersey and was now a basketball player. And I never had any teaching about basketball. I didn't grow up in a family that played a lot of sports. We did a lot of music, but we didn't play a lot of sports. I did play football, but even that's a whole nother story. But I never had any training. I didn't know anything about basketball. I knew I had a jersey. It was number 19. They put it on me, and now I'm on the court. And the only thing I knew is avoid the ball. That's all I wanted to do. Everyone say, run the right way. And I remember somewhere along the way, as I was avoiding the ball, it ended up bouncing to me off of the backboard. And I remember I had the ball. And when I got the ball, one of my players had made a shot and missed. I got the ball. Well, what do you think you're supposed to do? Well, I ran to the other side of the court. And all I remember is everyone was cheering me on. What I didn't realize, it was the other team's families cheering me on. I ran all the way down to the other court, never played basketball, number 19. Everyone said, go 19. I was running, and I remember I must be doing great. Everyone was cheering, go, go, shoot. They were yelling, shoot. What was the other team telling me to shoot? I shot the ball. The first basketball that I ever shot was that day, and the first basket I ever made was for the other team. And they got 2 points. And I remember thinking, yay, I was jumping up and down. I thought everyone's going to be proud of me. I turn around, and all of my teammates are on the other side of the court looking, what's wrong? Everyone say, what's wrong with you? You were running say it again, you were running. Has anyone else ever done anything like this, or is this just my life? Raise your hand if you have. Please, we want to see the Hall of Fame of the Shameful. All right? That is my opening illustration about running the right way, because here it is. Write this down. It's a good quote. This comes off the top right here. I was thinking of this. If you want to know if you're running the right way, have you ever wondered, am I going the right way? Just run the wrong way for a while. You'll figure it out. How many's run the wrong way before in life? And isn't it true how you'll find out, because it will teach you. Let's look at our text today, and then I want to tell you a few things about some illustrations about the football game that we're going to see today. But running with purpose in 1 Corinthians chapter 9, verses 24 through 27, and let's read it together right now. If you'll look at it, you can see it on the media. And I'll read it to you from the New Living Translation. Don't you realize that in a race, everyone runs? Now, before I finish this, I have to give you the context of why Paul is writing this. Paul is writing to a church he started 2 years earlier. How many ever started something and you were embarrassed you did? And that's kind of what happened. Paul gets a letter 2 years after he started this church in Corinth. You can read about it in Acts chapter 18. And the letter tells him, this thing you started is a mess. And how many's ever felt like that about your family, your life? No. This thing you started, look at your neighbor right now and say, you're a mess, dude. All right? You're a mess. But this thing you started is a mess. And so Paul sits down and writes this letter. This letter is not really about theology, even though it does have theology. This is a letter on how to survive when life is falling apart. This is a letter on how to keep your faith when you feel like quitting. Have you ever feel like quitting before? I just started going to classes at the gym. Lori here is one of my instructors. She's ruthless. We'll talk about that later. But anyway, but I'm in training. Now, I thought to myself, everyone say, I don't need any training. Everyone say that. Now, if you notice, you watch the guys, it doesn't matter if we have a pot belly and we look like a mess. We look in the mirror and we see ourselves. How many knows that? You ever see guys, they'll go in and they'll lift the weights really big and they'll push and then they stand there. And we think, and then we'll go downstairs. Not all guys, but I see this a lot of guys, especially young guys. And what they don't realize, the reason they can lift that heavy weight is because they're young. That's why. But they'll lift all this heavy weight, and then they don't just put the dumbbell down. What do? Bam! And everyone down in the class hears it. In fact, Lori even looked up a couple of times because they drop it real hard, and that's kind of like, look what I did. Everyone say you can train the wrong way. Have you ever seen someone hurting themselves at the gym? And so I'm now in classes. Now, I did something at the beginning of 2026. I decided not to listen to my mind that tells me just to eat hot fudge sundaes and that I need to go to the gym. Sometimes the best thing to do is do the opposite of what you tell yourself to do. But I'm in these classes. And I remember when I first went in, I thought, I'm going to show these ladies, right? Barbara, who's 80, I don't know, whatever she is, she lifts more weight than me in the class. And then they're doing all sorts of stuff. I'll give you an illustration. Can you see? They do this stuff. I don't know what this is. I think that I'm actually in punishment of some kind. They do this. How many knows what that is? I'm not even doing it right, am I? And then the teacher, Lori, put your head against the wall. And put your back straight. My back is curved permanently. Anyone else? Oh, anyway. Now, I'm finding out that all these little tweaks in everything they do are really trying to help us. In fact, one of the instructors asked me, what are you wanting to accomplish in this class? I said, I just want to be able to get off the toilet and tie my shoes. Anyone else? I shouldn't have said that. That's live streaming. But anyway. And then they do other things, and they'll say, okay, on one foot. Now, Tammy says you need to stick it out to the side. I can't get that far yet. I'm in the D class, all right? But then they'll have you walk backwards with your eyes closed and not lose your balance. I'm thinking, what are we doing that? I remember at first I'm thinking, everyone do this. Everyone say it out loud. I don't need any training. I got this. And that was my attitude. It's not my attitude anymore. I'm looking around and I'm seeing Tammy, of course. She's the star of the class. And I am an F student right now. They're doing planks. How many knows what a plank is? I thought that's like a cedar board you put salmon on or something. But we're doing planks. We're doing side planks. Vicky's in the class. I hear Vicky over there. She's praying in the Spirit for me while I'm there. And she keeps saying to me, she looks at me and she goes, you're doing good, Robert. I'm going, no, I'm not. You're lying. That's the only time I've ever heard Vicky lie is when she sees me in this class. You're doing good. And she keeps telling me, Richard, you're coming. We got a spot for you, Richard. Come on. Come on, everyone go, come on, Richard. I know, I won't do that to you, Richard. Richard, don't come. You'll hate it. I'm telling you. Anyway, I'm in training because I need to have someone help me learn how to finish this life well. And I want to be able to do some things. And so, like, bend over, all right? I want to walk a straight line and not fall over. I don't want to trip over something. And all of those things, along with some weight lifting. Lori's class is a power class. I feel like I'm in an advertisement right now for. If you want to go to a good class, no, we won't do that. But I'm in training, and I had to think about that when I was reading this text. And I want you to read it with me. If you will. We're going to read it out loud together. I started, but read with me, and you can see on the media, verse 24 of 1 Corinthians 9. Don't you realize that in a race everyone runs, but only one gets the prize? So run to win. Now, he's not saying that only one Christian, one person. He's saying you have to be intentional to win. You have to be intentional. And when you watch the game today, believe me, there's been a lot of intention about training to get ready for the Super Bowl. All athletes, verse 25, read it with me. All athletes are disciplined in their what? in their training. They do it to win a prize that will fade. Now, he's not talking about the Olympic Games out of Rome where they get the laurel leaf. This is kind of interesting, but this is Corinth, and he's talking about the Isthmian Games. In these games, they were given a celery crown. You heard me. No peanut butter even, just a celery crown. Can you imagine that? 10 months they would train, and then they would do their event. There were 3 events: racing, or running, wrestling, and I'll think of the third one, or boxing. And they would do those 3 events, and whoever won, they would get a wreath or a crown made of celery. Now, I don't know about you, but if I practice for 10 months, I want something more than just a crown made out of celery. What would that last? A day. I guess you could eat it afterwards for a snack. They would make some of them out of pine as well. But the Bible even tells us, as you read on, they do this for a temporary reward. We're doing something for an eternal reward. So let's continue on. Verse 26, ready to begin. Go back to verse 25 again. All athletes disciplined in their training. They do it to win a prize that will what? Fade away, but we do it for an eternal prize. So I run with what? Purpose in every step. I'm not just shadow boxing. I discipline my body like an athlete, training it to do what it should. Otherwise, I fear that after preaching to others, I myself might be disqualified. Now listen to the wording. Paul uses the word I, so he's talking to himself. One of the things I never noticed until early this morning, and I read the whole book of 1 Corinthians again, because I like to read. If you're studying a chapter in the Bible, you want to make sure that you read it in context, so you need to go back and read that whole chapter, and the chapter before, the chapter after, and if you can, read the whole book. Paul was under attack when he wrote this story, this metaphor here about running. Paul was under attack, and there's a lot of issues that were going on in the church of Corinth. Paul had gotten a letter, things weren't going well, but he's writing about running a race, and then notice he uses the word I. He's speaking about himself. Here's what Paul was kind of saying. As they were attacking his apostleship, his title, his background, his life, and they were saying like he wasn't really worthy or smart enough or should have come there and established his church. And Paul was almost saying like this when he says, don't you know that when we run, all of us are running? He was saying this, hey guys, lighten up. I'm in a race too. Everyone look at your neighbor and say, I'm running too. Here it is. This is it. Say this to them. Dude, it's not all about you. Ouch. We're running a race together. One of the first things that ever happened to me when I moved here, I met Joy. I don't know if you remember this, Joy, and you said, can you want to help me do a race and to man some tables? Remember that? Went up a equestrian way. And I remember I just moved from Maryland and think, I'm now a race monitor, but there were tables we had set up, and we were watching people run a race. And when they would go by and they're running up a equestrian, it's steep. And I remember I started thinking, well, I'm not supposed to just stand here. I started doing this. It's like Hebrews chapter 12. I said, come on. Now, I'll be honest with you. Some people running that race shouldn't have been. They didn't look prepared. I saw one guy running. I wanted to say, stop. I mean, he was extremely out of shape. I don't know why in the world he was running this race, especially that particular part of the hill, and he was huffing and puffing. I thought, he's going to die. All right? Because everyone say, you need to train. He wasn't trained for this race. And Paul talks about this, and he says 3 different things, and I'd like you to look at all 3 of them. If you want to write them down, here they are, and I'll come back to them. We're not going to be here long. But everyone say, number 1, run. Number 2, train. And then verse 26, number 3, with purpose. We're going to look at those. Today, when you look at the Super Bowl, we have the Seahawks and the Patriots. But did you know that the Seahawks and Patriots played in 2015, and the Patriots won. It was the last 2 seconds of the game. And how many knows this? How many knows this? You're sick too, Tyler, like Eric. You guys know all this stuff. Anyone else know all this football stuff? But here it is. There you go. You know it too, right over here. Andrew, right? Andrew. Good to see you, Andrew. But anyway, so here they are. They're on the 2-yard line. And it is the Seahawks. They have the ball. And instead of the last 2 seconds of the game, giving the ball to their strongest receiver, the runner, they decide, did I say receiver? See, I need that. Thank you. Thank you, Jeremy. Don't embarrass me like that again. Anyway, but here it is. Anyway, I said, so he gave it to their fastest runner. Instead of giving it to the fastest runner, the coach, I believe, called in a play. And he said, we're going to pass. Worst mistake of their life. It got intercepted by a Patriot. Was it Malcolm someone? But anyway, it got intercepted by a Patriot, and that was the game. So let me say this to you. Today, 2026, there is a revenge game happening. There's a revenge game happening. The Seahawks felt like it was stolen from them. They won something back. But let me tell you this about competition. Revenge is never a good enough reason. Your emotions aren't the thing that's going to help you win. How many knows that? If you go into anything and you're just doing it with emotions, you're not training. You can't do anything. How many has an emotional 2026 goals? They're emotional. This year, you feel emotional and you make a New Year's resolution. How many's ever done that before? This year. Everyone put your hand up. This year. How's that going? It has to be more than just the emotion. And so we realize there's training that goes on. Now, once again, it can't be just for revenge, but there's training that takes place in order to get ready to win. Both of these teams, by the way, are going in to what? I don't think now going in, there might be the favorites and whatnot, but both of them are going in. We're going in to win. Let's get back to that in a minute, but let's look at the word in verse 24. I want you to look with me at the word. Everyone say run. This is the same word in the Greek for going on a trek. Trek. And it's the word that we use for someone who has a destination and they're heading out in a certain direction. I talked to you about I was running the wrong direction when I was on a basketball team because I was not trained to understand the game of basketball. I saw 2 baskets. I figure if I make it into one of them, someone's getting some points. Well, that's true. It just wasn't my team. And it's the same thing in our life as a follower of Christ. Paul says, and once again, he was under attack and he was tired. And you don't think of the apostles that way, but he literally was saying, guys, I'm running too. I'm not just some guy with a title. I'm in the race too. I'll say that about myself. I'm in a race to keep my faith. I'm in a race to stay encouraged. I'm in a race to deal with life when it gets weary or hard or I feel like giving up or it gets difficult. Let me give you a few tools that I use because I've been training myself now for decades. Here it is. Here's training that we always must be in. And then I'll talk to you more training that the NFL has. But you need to be people who understand how to pray. Not just when. A lot of people, here's your prayer. You pray when someone just cut you off on the road. You might add a few adjectives to that prayer, but the point is, how many's ever said, Jesus? Is that a prayer? I think so. The thief on the cross didn't say a whole bunch. It was a prayer. But we need to know how to, everyone say pray, read the Bible, worship, and fellowship. I'm going to say it again. Are you ready? Everyone say pray. This is training. Read your Bible. Worship. What's the last one? Fellowship. Now, I love all music. I love playing different kind of music. But there's something very different about spiritual music that when you turn it on and you're really going through a difficult time, you have your Bible open and you're listening to it, the spiritual music that is singing to you from the Word literally, man, it just brings you right into the presence of God. How many has experienced that? I can be down, I can be struggling, and I put on worship, I have my Bible open, man, and all of a sudden I feel this joy come in where there's depression. I feel joy come in where there's discouragement. I feel hope come in where there's no hope. But that is spiritual training. Paul even goes on to say in context to this, he goes, everyone knows that athletes, they spend a lot of time disciplining themselves in training, to train. Look at verse 25 with me. And I want to give you another one. He says in verse 25 of chapter 9, he says, all athletes are, everyone say, disciplined. There's that word. Verse 25, they train with discipline. Now, what are some of the things the NFL does? When these guys show up to be an NFL football player, most all of them across the board have been playing football since they were little kids in Pop Warner, into junior high, and into high school. Most all of them were star players in high school, and they were star players in college. Now, this is where they begin to find those that are separated out. And I've heard this from people. How many knows Alfredo, who was here not too long ago, and he got saved here in this church? And Alfredo, probably at any given moment, his natural body weight is 325, 300 pounds. How many knows that when you look at Alfredo? I remember his mom was here a few Sundays ago, and she goes, he won't stop eating. He just ate all the time. You know, can you imagine trying to feed this guy that grew up to, 6'4", 6'5", and 325 pounds. Alfredo was the star in high school at Arroyo Grande High School. Everyone loved to watch him play. You know why? Because 5 guys would jump on him, and he'd keep going. No lie. Alfredo would drag 4 or 5 guys down the field with him because he was massive. Well, then he went on to play at just City College, Cuesta. I met one of the guys he played with one day. We were out walking around. He said, Pastor, because I asked, why didn't you keep playing football? He said, because when I was in high school, I was the star. When I went to play at just the City College, he goes, I started having guys hit me that were my size. And I said these words, nope, I'm doing that. He said, he never knew what it was like to get hit by a 300-pound person until he went to play in City College. Now take that on to big colleges, universities. And all of a sudden they start having people drop out because 2 reasons. They still need to have star status. They're stars. But now they're all starting down on the bottom. One of the first things that they look for, coaches, or I should say scouts, is they look for people who are not stardom, but they're people who are coachable. You might be really great, but are you teachable? Because what a lot of them do is they come in and they think there's no one who could teach them anything new because they were the star in high school or college. But when you get to NFL level, everyone is on the same level, and now you're playing against people that are less than the 1%, less than 0.17% of all the players that ever played from high school up make it to the NFL. We'll talk more about that in just a moment and give you a few buzzwords and trivia. Is there any football trivia people in here? Good. I can't embarrass myself anymore, Jeremy. Here we go. Look at it again, verse 25. What does he say? All athletes are disciplined in their, everyone say their training. So it's not the most talented that they're looking for in the NFL, but they're looking for people who have the ability to be trained, to grow up. Let me give you a verse of scripture on where we start. 1 Peter chapter 2, verse 2. It says this, when we first start into the run as followers of Christ, he says these words, hunger after the spiritual word of God like young babies. So by it you will, everyone say, grow up. Look at your neighbor. Say, dude, grow up. Tell him that. It is a process, a journey. We're passing through, we're walking, we're running in a race. And this race is a race of us maturing and growing. How does it happen? Is we're in training and we're going to those things that cause us to mature and grow. One of the other things I found out that they look for in quarterbacks at the NFL, they have found some quarterbacks that are better than some that are playing today who never made it. The reason they never made it isn't because they weren't good or even better than some. It's because they couldn't handle this. They couldn't handle failure on national TV, and they lost their confidence. And they couldn't handle failing instead of learning from their failures. How many has failed here before? Oh, you're in good company. Look across the room. Say it again. Who's failed here before? Raise your hand. What they look for, coaches will find someone who's really good. But they'll go out there and they'll make a play. It's on national TV, and that's it. Their whole world falls apart. The rest of the game, they fall apart because they can't focus back and have confidence because of that one failure. All they're thinking about, I embarrassed myself. Has anyone ever embarrassed yourself in this room? How about twice? Has anyone embarrassed yourself? And in order for this quarterback to be able to stay in the game, they have to have confidence even in failure. Let me give you a little insight before we go on, and we'll close this in a minute. You're going to have some failures in life. That's not something that I hope for, but it's reality. I remember my dad told me this. He said, son, when you fail. And I thought, when I fail, it's reality. He said, learn this. Dust yourself off, get up, and keep running. Run back to Jesus. Everyone say, when I fail. You see, that is preparing and training. They continue on. One of the things that quarterbacks have to be trained in is what to do when there's a blitz. How many knows what a blitz is? What is a blitz? Someone tell me. Tyler, what's a blitz? Do you hear what Tyler just said? Here's what happens. It's when the defensive team, the defensive line, instead of just a few people rushing in on the quarterback, that there's extra people who are now doing a blitz, which means more players are running in. Now, that leaves the field for the offense wide open, but if the blitz is done quickly, efficiently, and fast, they can get in and they can sack the... How many hates it when you see your quarterback sacked? Cartha she gets upset when they would sack Holmes. So you leave my boy alone. That's what she always says. A blitz. Now, why am I talking about this? Because quarterbacks are trained. They're trained with noise. They're trained with live playing, what to do when there's a blitz. They have to have muscle memory, and they have to know what to do. They have escape routes that they have practiced. There's things that they've practiced running backwards. They know where to run and what to do. How many has ever seen a quarterback get 20 yards instead of getting sacked? It's amazing. In fact, Holmes was one of the best at it, is literally the ability to be able to get out of a blitz and to gain yardage. And that is something that doesn't happen. Here it is. It's not by accident that we grow. It's not accident that we win. It's not accident that a quarterback makes yardage. He has practiced. He has practiced. He has practiced to where he doesn't have to think what to do. There's also another thing they teach in order for the players to respond to a quarterback when a quarterback changes the game. Let me ask you, has some of your plans been changed in life? And in order to know what to do, I need to train. I need to train in prayer. I need to train in the Word. I need to train in worship, and I need to train in fellowship. All those things keep my faith intact and growing. What they do with players, when they see their quarterback, all of a sudden, he's called a play, and now he backs up, he's getting ready to throw, and he changes the play in a split second. All of them know something called hot routes. Do you know what a hot route is, Tyler? The hot route The hot route is something they've trained over and over and over again, that when the quarterback changes the play, they have a route that they have already been conditioned. They know it without even thinking, and they run that direction, which gives the quarterback the option to be able to throw the ball to them. Quarterbacks learn 300 to 500 plays by heart, and each of those plays have 5 to 10 variations. That literally means they learn from 15 to 2,000 plays by heart. And then they all have to learn a language. Everyone say, and I'm going to come back to this, everyone say pray, read your Bible, worship, and fellowship. We learn something when we stay close to the shepherd. We know his voice. And we find peace in the middle of storms, don't we? And when football players are in a huddle, they speak in a language and using, in fact, how many has ever listened to, or you've been on a football team and you hear them, they're making calls in their words and their numbers and things we don't even understand. It's a whole nother language that they're speaking. And then how many has ever heard the hiker? He's down there on the ground and you hear the quarterback, and what does the quarterback start doing? He counts. And how many, he doesn't just go, 1, does he? What's he do? Hold on! He's kind of aggressive. 2. I remember when I first started playing, I heard that. And a guy, I was the center. He goes, what? 2. I go, Gesundheit. No, I'm just kidding. I didn't do that. I'm not that bad. But they have a whole nother language they learn and they're trained. So if the play changes, whatever takes place, if there's a blitz, they already have studied the field. They know the other team that's coming. I guarantee you the quarterback on both sides knows everything about the players that they're going to be playing against. Everything. They know the reactions. They know how fast things go. They have to be able to do one more thing when the clock is running out. How many hates it when your team needs one more point and the clock's running out? And there's something all quarterbacks have to be able to do when the clock is running out. What do you think that is? Keep their cool. They will keep playing like they have an hour to go. They don't get emotionally driven. They play by their training. Is there anyone here ever gets emotional? Thank you, Micah. Where are we going for lunch, Micah? Okay, all right. If you say so, buddy. He asks me that every Sunday. Where are we going for lunch, man? So once again, everyone say train. Train. Say it again, train. How are you training? Are you spending time training? And then I want to look at the last one, and it's verse 26. And if you can see it there, I'll read it here. So I run with purpose. Everyone say again, run, train with purpose. Now remember, Paul was kind of under attack. And what he was saying is, guys, I'm running too, but you need to know something. Some of you are attacking me. Your motive is wrong in the race. He goes, but I'm telling you this. My motive is this. I run with purpose, and that is I'm running to serve Christ. There were those that would dog Paul. They continually would come along, and they tried to proselyte these little churches he'd start, but their motive is wrong. They were taking people's money, and they were trying to usurp their authority over them. And so Paul said, look, I don't know what your motive is, but I'm telling you my motive. My purpose is I'm running for Jesus. If your motive is wrong, it can get funky. It can get really weird in the church. If you start getting caught up with the wrong things, look, we're servants together. And notice Paul says, in a race, don't you know, everyone's running. What do you think is one of the key reasons one team will win over another? Because the team played better together. How many knows the term when someone hogs the ball in a basketball game, right? You can have the best, most talented player, and they'll lose the game because they didn't play as a team player, right? And that is true of us. We're not supposed to fight. In fact, most of everything Paul talks about before he talks about the race is the church was full of jealousy. They were full of following one person over another. In fact, let me say to this. You're not following a pastor. You're following Jesus. Pastors are servants. You're a servant. We don't worship pastors. We don't look at them and think somehow they're better than you. No, we are serving Jesus. We are followers of Christ. If you keep your eyes on that, you're not going to get caught up with funky stuff that can happen, because I know some pastors that are weirdos. Hey, come on, Jim. How many knows that? People, we're not worshiping or following someone. You can be dynamic. You can speak charismatic. You can be the best speaker in the world. You can have thousands of people following you, and you can be crazy. And we can be crazy enough to worship them instead of keeping our eyes on Jesus. And that's what Paul was saying. I'm going to say it again. Paul says these words in verse 26. So everyone say I. Notice he's talking of himself. Paul's saying, I'm in a race, but I am running with purpose in every step. Sometimes we get so far out here, and Paul is saying, look, I'm in a race. I'm not thinking about 10 steps down the line. I'm thinking about the next step. I'll close with this story on this. I don't like to tell stories, but I will. I don't know, I think this is my third. But anyway, here we are. I'm trying to keep it down to 2. Yeah, that's right. When I look at running with purpose, or I'm getting ready to compete, or whether it's a basketball game, or whether it's a foot race, or whether it's a football game today, when you look at the game, it's not by luck the teams win. It's not by luck. And I'm not saying that doesn't happen at times, but that's maybe a one-off, right? How many have seen a one-off before? But if you want consistent growth, consistent maturity, consistent forward motion in your walk as a believer, it's not because you got lucky. It's because you were very intentional. I used to go to Downey YMCA. I'd get off at work. I was a truck driver for Sherwin-Williams Paint Company, and I was only 18. It was a great job. I would go there after work, and then I would lift weights. And, of course, when you're young, you always lift the weights that are the easy ones because it's and I'm kind of always been husky on the upper part, so I'd always work out just with my arms. My legs were like this big around my arm. And you know how many has ever said of it anyway? And I had cut off sleeves? I cut off my sleeves. And I'd work out real hard, and my arms would get all worked up. And then I would go over to Tammy's house as fast as I get there before my arm shrunk. Guys are weird. What can I say? Guys are weird. We really are. As I get older, I'm still weird. I'll ask Timmy, do I look good still? Anyway, but she lies to me. But anyway, when I went to the gym, though, I'd go in and I'd work out, get all buffed up. And this particular day, though, I'm talking about being intentional. We have to be intentional in our run. We're running to win. We have to be intentional about finishing. And so it's not luck. And this day, I left the weight room, and I was getting ready to leave, and I thought, I'm going to stick my head into the basketball court. Beautiful indoor basketball court. Well, my buddy, who was a really great basketball player, Lee, he played all through high school. He always was picking up games. He was a very talented basketball player. He saw me, and here I am again. Now I'm 19, and I hear Lee, we need one more guy. Next thing you know, I'm on a team again. I didn't want to get on a team. Now I'm on a team. Now I'm playing, and this is all adults, guys, and we're out there. And I'm thinking, oh, my God, here I have the same strategy I did when I was in the 7th grade. Stay away from the ball. That's all I was trying to do. I'm running around, look like I'm doing something, How many knows that? I'm just trying. I don't know what in the world I was thinking, but I'm just running around trying to stay away from that ball. And all of a sudden it comes to me again. I'm thinking, oh my God. And I was at the center, no lie, I'm at the center line. I'm barely into the key. I'm way up here at the half of the court. And I shot the ball all the way from there. And it went in without even touching the rim. Now, everyone thought that I knew how to shoot three-pointers all day long. Now they were throwing the ball to me. In the next 6 or 7 of them, finally they stopped throwing the ball to me because they figured out that was just luck. Well, laughing at my expense, the point is, you're not going to mature in the Lord by luck. You're going to mature in the Lord because you learn this. You learn to run with discipline and training. You learn to pray, stay in the Word, worship the Lord, and stay in fellowship. You learn to pray. You learn to read the Word. You learn to worship and stay in fellowship. I'm going to say it again. You learn to pray. You learn to read the Word. You learn to worship and to stay in fellowship. And you do it over and over again. What happens is muscle memory. My mom, at this point of her life, is beginning to forget some things. She's 93. But my mom's muscle memory. She's in a home. And when I go to see her, sometimes she'll even forget my brother. She forgets my sister. But then you talk to her for a moment. And here's what brings her back in. Is I'll start singing a hymn. And then my mom looks at me, Robert, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. And then all of a sudden my mom will come in and start singing right alongside me. Blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Oh, what a foretaste, and she'll look, of glory divine, heir of salvation. Wow. And then I'll quote a verse of scripture to her. Mom, Psalms 91, what does it say? And she'll quote the whole chapter to me. Every verse. And then we'll go into amazing grace. How sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see. She'll sing right along with me. I can hear her voice right now while I'm singing it. Why? Because her muscle memory. She'll forget. My mom has spoken in the missionary field in India, out in the Acampo, in rainforest. She traveled. She was such a stud. She traveled with one other lady, and they'd go in there, and they'd go all over the place. And she preached to thousands. But she's starting to forget who she is, where she is. But all you have to do is, blessed assurance, Jesus is mine. Robert, let me tell you something, friends. We don't finish by luck. We finish by training. And I can tell you this about my mom. She's been training her whole life to get old and die and go home to be with the Lord. So she's not flipping out. And she's teaching me how not to flip out. She's a stud, man. Can I say that about my mom? If my mom, spiritually, if she was an NFL player, she'd kick all their butts today. She has trained through circumstance that were not the best, through suffering, through raising a family, losing children. She has trained by keep running to Jesus through every storm, through every victory. She has ran to Jesus. And so now, when I look at who's my example? I look at my mom. And my mom, she knows the word. She knows hymns. And she smiles. I'll ask her, Mom, what are you doing here? She goes, I don't know, but I'm helping all these people. They need Jesus. She thinks she's running a woman's conference. She's been there for a long time. She asked me the other day, when do I get to go home from this conference? She says, I'm getting tired. I want to go home. And I know home's coming soon. But she's been training. And let me say this to you. You're in training right now, whether you want to be or not. Don't train wrong. You'll hurt yourself. Let's end with this verse. Matthew 11:28-30 says, come on to me, all you that are burdened and heavy laden, and I will give you rest, for my yoke is easy and my burden is light. Come and learn from me, and I will show you the rhythms of grace. Come and learn from me. You know what that is? That's training with the coach, Jesus. And he's getting you ready for the big game. And someday you're going to cross over into a place called home. And you don't have to walk in fear in this life. You can walk in victory. In victory. Muhammad Ali, how many remembers him, the great boxer? And he said when he was young, he'd go to the gym, and he said, I didn't want to go to the gym. I hated it. It was painful, and there was a lot of suffering. But he said to myself one day, Muhammad, go to the gym and suffer today because you're going to be a champion forever. And you know what? He was a champion. And I'm here to tell you, keep training. Keep your eyes on Jesus. Keep the joy of the Lord in your heart. Don't throw in the towel. God has the victory. You're going to make it. You're not alone. And we have a great future. Will you stand to your feet with me right here?